April 30th, 1943, 9:30 a.m., the coast of Huelva, southern Spain. A sardine fisherman named Jose Antonio Rey Maria pulls his nets through calm water when something bumps against the hull. He looks over the side and sees a body floating face down in the shallows. A man in military uniform, kept at the surface by a life jacket, with a leather briefcase chained to his wrist. Jose drags the body alongside the boat, rows to shore, and contacts the local police. Spanish soldiers arrive within the hour, pull the body onto the sand, and examine the dead man's pockets. An identity card reads Captain William Martin, Acting Major, Royal Marines. Date of birth, March 29, 1907. In his wallet, they find a photograph of a dark-haired young woman, 2 folded love letters, a receipt for an engagement ring from a London jeweler, 2 ticket stubs from a West End theater, and a silver cross on a chain around his neck. The briefcase is black leather and locked, with a chain running from the handle through a loop on his trench coat belt. Spanish officers open it and find a sealed envelope addressed to General Sir Harold Alexander, commander of the British 18th Army Group in Tunisia. The letter inside is from Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Nye, the Vice Chief of the Imperial General Staff in London, and is marked as personal and highly confidential. The Spanish read it. The letter contains details about upcoming Allied operations in the Mediterranean. The targets are Greece and Sardinia, with Sicily mentioned only as a decoy to distract German attention from the real invasions. This is exactly what the British want the Spanish to find, because Major William Martin does not exist and never has. The dead man is someone else entirely, and the letter is a forgery designed to reach one person, Adolf Hitler. The problem. Rewind to January 1943, Casablanca, Morocco. Allied leaders meet to decide the next phase of the war. The North Africa campaign is nearly won, and Axis forces in Tunisia are collapsing. So the question now is where to strike next. The Americans want to cross the English Channel and invade France, but the British argue it's too soon. Not enough troops and not enough landing craft. They push for a different target, Sicily. The island sits at the southern tip of Italy, with 18 airfields and ferry connections to the mainland. Control of Sicily would open the Mediterranean shipping lanes and give the Allies a direct path into mainland Europe. The problem is obvious, and Winston Churchill says it plainly. Everyone but a bloody fool would know that it's Sicily. The island is the only logical target. The Germans know it, the Italians know it, and every military strategist in Europe can look at a map and point to it. If the Allies land on a heavily defended Sicily, the casualties will be enormous. Planners estimate 10,000 killed and wounded in the first week alone. The invasion could stall and the whole Mediterranean strategy could collapse. The Allies need to make Hitler look somewhere else. They need a deception so convincing that the German High Command moves its troops away from Sicily before the invasion begins, and British intelligence takes on the task. The idea. The concept comes from a 1939 document written by Rear Admiral John Godfrey, the director of British Naval Intelligence, though the actual author is almost certainly his assistant, a young naval intelligence officer named Ian Fleming, who will later create James Bond. The document is called the Trout Memo. It compares wartime deception to fly fishing and lists 54 possible schemes to mislead the enemy. Number 28 on the list reads, obtain a corpse, dress it in a military uniform, plant false documents on it, and let the enemy discover the body. Fleming notes in the margin, a suggestion, not a very nice one. The idea sits in a file for 3 years. In late 1942, Flight Lieutenant Charles Chumley, a lanky RAF officer, revives the concept and proposes a plan called Trojan Horse. Drop a dead body from an aircraft, simulating a crash, with fake invasion plans at its pockets. The idea reaches Lieutenant Commander Ewan Montague of Naval Intelligence. Montague sees the potential but also the flaws. An aircraft crash is too difficult to simulate convincingly. A plane wreck leaves debris, questions arise, and investigators follow. But a body washed ashore from a crash at sea is different. No wreckage to inspect, no witnesses, just a dead officer and his documents carried by the tide onto a foreign beach. Montague and Chumley refine the plan and select the code name from a list of available terms. Operation Mincemeat. On February 4, 1943, they filed a proposal with the 20 Committee, the secret MI5 group that oversees double agents and deception operations. The committee approves and passes it up the chain of command. On April 15th, Winston Churchill gives the final green light from his quarters in the cabinet war rooms, and Dwight Eisenhower, the Allied commander in the Mediterranean, approves it the same week. Now, they need a body. Building a dead man. Montague contacts Bentley Purchase, the coroner for the St. Pancras district of London, and explains what they need. An unclaimed male body, early 30s, no visible injuries. Bentley is skeptical. Most corpses are claimed by families, but agrees to keep watch. On January 28, 1943, Bentley calls Montague. He has found someone, a Welsh homeless man named Glyndwr Michael, 34 years old, found dead in an abandoned warehouse near King's Cross Station after ingesting rat poison containing phosphorus. Whether it was deliberate or accidental is never determined. Michael's father had killed himself years earlier. His mother died when he was 31, and he had drifted to London with no friends, no family, and no one to claim his body. Bentley explains that the phosphorus in Michael's system is small enough that a quick autopsy would not detect it, especially by a small-town Spanish doctor. Montague looks at the gaunt, malnourished corpse and notes that it does not look like a military officer. Bentley shrugs. He does not have to look like an officer, only a staff officer, more used to office work than combat. They have their body, but a body is not enough. They need a person. Over the next 3 months, Montague and Chumley construct an entire life for a man who never existed, Captain William Martin, acting major, Royal Marines, born March 29, 1907, son of John Glyndwr Martin and the late Antonia Martin of Cardiff, Wales. They give him a fiancée named Pam and find an MI5 clerk named Jean Leslie to photograph for the wallet picture. They write love letters from Pam in a woman's handwriting and add a receipt for a diamond engagement ring, 2 ticket stubs from a London theater dated April 22nd, a bill for a new shirt from a German street shop, a letter from Martin's father advising him on financial matters, and a stern note from his bank manager about an overdraft. Major Martin is a man in love, about to be married, and slightly careless with money. He is real. The key document is a personal letter from Lieutenant General Nye to General Alexander. Nye writes the letter himself, discussing sensitive topics like appointments, medals, and logistics. Buried within the friendly tone is the critical intelligence. The Allies plan to invade Greece with a secondary attack on Sardinia, while Sicily is mentioned only as a diversionary target. A second letter from Lord Louis Mountbatten reinforces the deception by introducing Major Martin as a specialist in amphibious operations traveling to Alexander's headquarters in North Africa. The letters are sealed, placed inside the briefcase, and the case is attached to the body by a leather-covered chain looped through the trenchcoat's belt. The delivery. The early hours of April 17, 1943, Hackney Mortuary, London. Montague, Chumley, and Bentley Purchase stand over the body of Glyndwr Michael and begin dressing him in the uniform of a Royal Marines officer. There's one problem, though. The body has been refrigerated for 3 months and the feet are frozen solid. The boots will not go on. They find an electric heater and defrost the feet until the leather slides into place. They fill his pockets with a wallet, the letters, and the ticket stubs, then attach the briefcase chain to the trenchcoat belt and slide the body into a steel canister labeled "Handle with Care, Optical Instruments." They pack 21 pounds of dry ice around the corpse, and as the ice melts, it fills the canister with carbon dioxide, driving out oxygen and preserving the body without refrigeration. Outside, a 1937 Fordson van waits with Jock Horsfall behind the wheel, an MI5 chauffeur and former racing champion who is short-sighted and refuses to wear glasses. Chumley and Montague climb into the back with a canister, and Horsfall drives through the blackout at breakneck speed, north through the night, to Greenock in western Scotland. At the naval base, the canister is loaded onto HMS Seraph, a British submarine preparing for deployment to the Mediterranean. The crew jokes about their cargo and calls it John Brown's body. On April 19th, Seraph sets sail under the command of Lieutenant Bill Jewell. The voyage takes 10 days and the submarine is bombed twice en route, but reaches the Spanish coast on April 29th. After spending the day scouting the coastline, Jewel surfaces at 4:15 a.m. on April 30th and orders all crew below deck except his officers. Only a handful of men on the submarine know what the canister actually contains. If the wrong person talks, the entire operation is exposed and the deception collapses before it begins. They haul the canister topside, open the lid, and lower the body into the dark water while a life jacket keeps the corpse afloat. Jewel reads Psalm 39 over the body, then orders engines to full astern. The propeller wash pushes the dead man toward the shore. The officers reload the canister and take the submarine 12 miles out, where they surface and push the empty container overboard, riddling it with machine gun fire. The canister refuses to sink. Air trapped in the insulation keeps it afloat, so they destroy it with plastic explosives instead. Jewel sends one message to the Admiralty: mincemeat completed. The trap. The British chose Huelva for specific reasons. The coastal currents run toward shore, the town has a German consulate, and an Abwehr intelligence agent named Adolf Klaus operates there under the cover of an agricultural technician. The local Spanish military officers are sympathetic to Germany, and the local coroner is unlikely to conduct a thorough autopsy. The fisherman finds the body that morning, and Spanish soldiers recover it by noon. On May 1st, 2 Spanish doctors conduct a post-mortem examination with a British Vice Consul Francis Hazelden present. As the smell of the decomposing corpse fills the room, Hazelden suggests that perhaps, given the heat, the doctor should wrap things up and break for lunch. They agree and sign a death certificate for Major William Martin: asphyxiation through immersion in the sea, death by drowning due to a lack of oxygen. The mission proceeds as planned. Martin is buried with full military honors at Nuestra Señora de la Soledad Cemetery on May 2nd. Spanish soldiers carry the coffin and officers salute. Among the mourners, one tall figure stands at the edge of the crowd: Adolf Klaus. He's watching. Meanwhile, a carefully staged drama unfolds. The British send increasingly frantic messages between London, the Madrid embassy, and the vice consul in Huelva, all through channels they know the Germans are intercepting. The messages demand the immediate return of highly classified documents, secret papers in a black briefcase that must be recovered at once and must not fall into the wrong hands. The Germans are listening, and every intercepted cable raises the stakes. Klaus contacts Abwehr headquarters in Madrid, promising to obtain copies of the documents, but the Spanish Navy has taken possession of the briefcase and they are not cooperating. He pressures local officials, the Guardia Civil commander, the harbor master, but no one will hand them over. The briefcase travels from Huelva to naval headquarters at San Fernando near Cadiz, then on to Madrid. The senior Abwehr agent in Spain contacts his superiors in Berlin, and word reaches Wilhelm Canaris, the head of the Abwehr. Canaris intervenes through his personal contacts with the Spanish government. The Spanish finally allow the Germans 1 hour with the documents. The letters are carefully extracted from their envelopes using thin steel rods, copied, and returned. The envelopes are resealed and soaked in seawater to disguise the tampering. What the Germans don't know is that Montague and Chumley placed a single eyelash inside one of the sealed letters. When the documents are eventually returned to the British through diplomatic channels, the eyelash is gone. The letters have been read. But the final confirmation comes from Bletchley Park, where British code breakers intercept and decrypt German communications. A message is sent to Churchill, then traveling to the United States. Mincemeat swallowed rod, line, and sinker by the right people, and from the best information, they look like acting on it. Hitler takes the bait. March 14, 1943, Adolf Hitler meets with Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz to discuss the Mediterranean situation. Hitler has seen the intelligence from Spain and he is convinced Sicily is not the real target. The Allies are coming for Greece and Sardinia. He issues orders. The 1st Panzer Division transfers from France to Greece. 7 infantry divisions move from Italy to the Balkans. 10 additional infantry divisions redeploy from Italy to southeastern Europe. Sardinia receives heavy reinforcements of aircraft and naval units, and German torpedo boats relocate from Sicily to the Greek islands. The defenses of Sicily are being stripped while the Allies prepare to invade it. In July, Hitler issues Directive 48, mandating enhanced defensive measures across the Balkans to counter the anticipated Allied landings there. Even the Italian defenders on Sicily lower their guard. With German reinforcements being redirected, Italian commanders maintain reduced alert levels, assuming the island is merely a decoy target. The trap is set. The invasion. July 9, 1943, night, the largest naval invasion the world has seen begins. Over 3,000 ships cross the Mediterranean toward the southern coast of Sicily, carrying more than 160,000 American, British, and Canadian troops, with 4,000 aircraft providing cover from above, with bombers, fighters, gliders, and troop transports. A violent storm hits as the fleet approaches, scattering paratroopers from the U.S. 82nd Airborne and British 1st Airborne across the countryside and sending gliders crashing into the sea, drowning more than 600 Commonwealth troops. But the storm also convinces the Axis that no invasion will come tonight, and defenses relax. In the early hours of July 10th, the first landing craft hit the beaches on Sicily's southeastern and southern coasts. British and Canadian forces land near Syracuse, while American forces storm ashore further west. They are met by only 2 German divisions. The rest of the Wehrmacht is in Greece and Sardinia, exactly where the dead man's briefcase told them the invasion would come. Even 4 hours after the landings begin, 21 Axis aircraft leave Sicily to reinforce Sardinia. The deception holds, and German commanders still believe Sicily is a feint. The Allies push inland. The Americans under General George Patton break through thin Italian lines and race toward Palermo, capturing it by July 22nd along with over 50,000 prisoners. The British 8th Army under General Bernard Montgomery advances up the eastern coast toward Catania and Messina, meeting stiffer resistance around Mount Etna. The island falls in 38 days. The planners expected 90. Roughly 24,000 Allied troops are killed or wounded, far beyond initial projections. On the Axis side, approximately 9,000 are killed and 135,000 captured, mostly Italians. The collapse. The fall of Sicily triggers exactly the chain of events the Allies hoped for. On July 19th, Allied bombers strike Rome for the first time, hitting railway marshalling yards and bringing the war to the Italian capital. On July 24th, the Grand Council of Fascism meets in Rome and votes to strip Benito Mussolini of his power, handing control of the Italian armed forces to King Victor Emmanuel III. The next day, Mussolini meets the king, who dismisses him as prime minister. Mussolini is arrested and imprisoned. The man who built Italian fascism removed from power in a single meeting. A new Italian government takes over and begins secret negotiations with the Allies. On September 8, 1943, Italy formally surrenders. Within days, Allied forces cross the Strait of Messina and land on the Italian mainland. Germany now has to occupy its former ally and defend the peninsula simultaneously. Wehrmacht divisions pour into Italy to hold back the advancing Allied armies, and troops, already stretched thin across Greece, the Balkans, and Sardinia, now have to cover an entirely new front. By the end of 1943, 1/5 of the entire German army is tied down in Italy and the Mediterranean, forces that cannot reinforce the crumbling Eastern Front against the Soviet Union. One dead man, one forged letter, and Hitler loses an ally. The man who never was. The true identity of Major William Martin remains classified for over 50 years. In 1953, Ewan Montague publishes a memoir called The Man Who Never Was, which becomes a bestseller and is adapted into a film in 1956. But Montague keeps his promise and never reveals the dead man's name, describing him only as a bit of a ne'er-do-well, whose only worthwhile act came after his death. In 1996, an amateur historian named Roger Morgan finds a recently declassified document in the Public Record Office containing the name Glender Michael. 2 years later, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission adds a new inscription to the headstone in Huelva. Glender Michael served as Major William Martin, RM. A Welsh homeless man with no family and no future, found dead in a London warehouse after eating rat poison. Forgotten in life, he became the most important corpse in military history. Operation Mincemeat did not win the war, but it accelerated the collapse of the Axis position in southern Europe, stripped Sicily of its defenses, toppled Mussolini, and forced Germany to fight on a front it could not afford. The British historian Sir Michael Howard called it the best known and perhaps the most successful single deception operation of the entire war. It began with a memo by the man who invented James Bond, was carried out by a submarine crew who thought they were hauling optical instruments, and succeeded because a Spanish fisherman pulled a dead stranger out of the water on a quiet morning in April. Galinder Michael never knew what he did, but the man who never was changed the war that was.